Are you ready to get wild today? Yeah, I'm talking to you. Well, we're going to get wild today on the Raiders Report. Coming up on today's show, 5 draft day trades that I believe that the Las Vegas Raiders could make. Anytime when you talk about trades, I do think it's important to illustrate how much does it cost to trade up? How much does it cost to trade back? Does trading for 2023 look different than trading for picks maybe in the future for 2024? We're going to discuss all of that on today's show. Now, one thing that I know is this. Jeremy and I, we would definitely get wild, and we're going to be wild for our 2023 NFL draft coverage. So if you want to be able to watch every single pick, all 7 rounds here live with us on the Raiders Report, take a second and make sure you're subscribed. So to me, what I wanted to do here is give you like 5 different scenarios in terms of what types of trades that the Raiders could make. I'm also going to talk about which teams are the most likely to trade up for, which players you'd be most likely to trade up for, which teams most likely you would trade down with. That's all coming up here on today's show. So to me, if you're going to trade up, the only way that it makes sense for McDaniels and the only way that it makes sense for Ziegler is if you move up for a quarterback. And the only 2 quarterbacks worth trading up, in my opinion, are CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. I will be honest, I don't really think that this is a very likely scenario because I think Stroud and Young are the picks 1 and 2 in this upcoming draft. But let's just say a team falls in love with Will Levis. Maybe a team falls in love with Anthony Richardson. We've seen crazier things. And if one of those 2 quarterbacks is available at number 3 when the Arizona Cardinals are up to pick, it actually wouldn't surprise me if Ziegler hopped on the phone and said, hey, let's make a deal. So to me, this is what the trade would probably look like for the Raiders to move up with Arizona. The Cardinals get the Raiders' first and third round pick in this year's draft at 7 and 70. And then they would also have to throw in a 2024 first round pick. If you think that you're getting your franchise quarterback, this is worth it to me. However, the deal that you signed with Jimmy Garoppolo, he's probably going to be your starter for this year. And then next year, yeah, you can potentially get out of the deal. Though if you trade up for a quarterback, I'd actually rather you start CJ Stroud. I'd rather you start Bryce Young over Jimmy G. Now, before I show you the other 4 trades on today's show, what do you think is the most likely scenario for the Raiders? I feel like every single year we show trade-up scenarios. We show trade-back scenarios. Do they just end up staying pat at number 7? What's the most likely thing to happen? Type trade up, draft at number 7, or do you think they trade back? Well, if you type trade back, luckily for you, I got 2 trade back options for 2023. The first trade back option is with a team that the Raiders have some familiarity with, and that's the Tennessee Titans. I have seen this offseason, you saw last offseason as well, that the Raiders are willing to make moves with organizations that they have some familiarity with. So for the Raiders and this deal with the Titans, you swap your first-round picks at 11 and 7, and then the Raiders also get the Tennessee Titans' second-round pick at number 41. In exchange, the Raiders sub out that third-round pick, which they got in the Darren Waller trade. So then if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, you got 4 picks in the top 70. That's pretty freaking good if you ask me. The reason why I believe that Tennessee would end up doing this is because, well, there's that connection with Mike Vrabel, who is a teammate, not a teammate, but worked with McDaniels and Ziegler. The Titans, they could potentially trade up for a quarterback because they don't really have one as it currently stands on the roster. And I also think that Tennessee could jump Atlanta. So for those that don't know, Arthur Smith was previously with the Tennessee Titans as an OC, and now he is with the Atlanta Falcons. So if they're like, well, we kind of know what Arthur might do here, you could see them get a little bit of a friendly rivalry and jump up over Atlanta, who picks at number 8. Now, today's show is presented by Athletic Greens, and I want to give them a huge shout-out for taking time out of their day for sponsoring the Raiders Report and sponsoring all the shows that we do here at Chat Sports. If you haven't already, go to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. The reason why I encourage people to take AG1 is because it's a simple and effective way to make sure that you're staying healthy and happy. I mean, we do a lot of crazy stuff on the show. I get it. But at the end of the day, I want y'all to be happy and healthy. So this product, it's going to be able to promote gut health with probiotics, prebiotics, enzymes. If I'm feeling bloated, I'll take a little AG1. Supports your immunity. It's definitely important. It's your daily dose of vitamin C, zinc, functional mushrooms, and more. You want some functional mushrooms? I got you covered. You need that boost of energy. When I wake up in the morning and I take my AG1, it does help me get my day started, but I also don't have that crash at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon because my body is a well-oiled machine thanks to AG1. And then also, it helps with recovery. If you plan on going to the gym, I always say, like, if you're going to spend the time and you're going to work your ass off, you at least want your body working at its highest quality. The way that I would put this out there and how I explained it to my dad is, you could put gas in the engine. You could put food in your system. But if there's no oil in that car, it's not going to run right. AG1 is the oil for your engine, and I really think that that's going to help you continue to churn out the best quality day possible. So go to athleticgreens.com/chatsports. Let's go to the next trade idea I have here on today's show. Trade back idea number 2. If there's another team that I could see potentially moving up and getting aggressive, it's actually the Houston Texans. So they already have one pick at number 2 overall. Let's hypothetically say that that's where they get their quarterback in Bryce Young. All right, now where could they go? To me, what Houston could do to help ensure that that young quarterback who, let's face it, is a tiny guy, I think there's a chance that Peter Skoronski is still on the board. And if I was Houston, I move up, I get Skoronski because I want to make sure that Bryce Young can stay healthy. So with that trade, the Raiders get the 12th pick. You also get the number 33 pick, which technically in this year's draft, you could argue is the 32nd pick, right, because of, them. Or no, it's still the 33rd. That's on me. Anyway, the Houston Texans, they get the number 7, and then you get your other third. So then for the Raiders, you would end up having the 12, the 33rd, the 38, and then pick 100. That's a lot of good high-quality picks early on in this year's draft. The reason why I think a trade with the Texans makes sense is very similar to what I said about Vrabel. Nick Caserio and Dave Ziegler are boys. They are great, great friends. They grew up on similar coaching staffs. And Houston, they have 12 picks, so if they want to get aggressive, much like the Raiders, they have the ability to get aggressive. The Raiders, I also know, would love to have another second-round pick because, hypothetically speaking, if a quarterback like a Will Levis, if a quarterback like an Anthony Richardson does slide down the board a little bit, if you have that other second-rounder and you want to trade back up into the first, that gives you the flexibility to do so. Let's go to the 4th trade idea here that the Raiders could do. Let's just say that the Raiders know that their plan is to go all in on a quarterback in next year's draft. They want to get a Caleb Williams. They want to get a Drake May. They don't love any of the quarterbacks in this year's class, but they like a few guys next year. You could see a team trade back and put themselves in a good spot for 2024. Now, if there's one team that I think could still potentially trade up to get a quarterback, because the top guy right now for Washington is Sam Howell. You look at the NFC East right now, there's a lot of good quarterback play and a lot of teams that are like kind of probably laughing at the Commanders right now. So Washington, they get the 7th pick. The Raiders get the 16th, but you also put yourself in a really good spot in next year's draft. You get a first-round pick in 2024. You get a second-round pick in 2024. I don't know if the Commanders end up getting an Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, but if I'm the Raiders, I'll take that bet. You put Will Levis and Anthony Richardson year 1 on that offense, I think that might be a pretty damn high pick for the silver and black. The reason why I think the Commanders do this is because, yes, you can move up for a quarterback. The Raiders continue to stockpile and try to go all in 2024. And I still think for the silver and black that there is plenty of talent in that pick 16 range. Do you want to go with an edge rusher? There's probably still going to be a cornerback on the board. Could you go tight end? There are still a lot of good players in this year's draft from like picks 20 to number 7. So in terms of some trade-up candidates, I do think that the Titans, Texans, Commanders are teams to keep in mind. I'll also say that the Seattle Seahawks are an intriguing team to me. And then on top of that, the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are historically a team that doesn't usually trade up all that much. But if Lamar Jackson, let's say, goes somewhere and you don't got a quarterback, you go from 22, you get your ass all the way up to number 7. I think an easy transition from Lamar Jackson to Anthony Richardson would make a lot of sense. Before I show you my final trade idea here, if you guys haven't already, please interact with me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Cameo. I'm also over on Locals as well at RaidersReport.locals.com for diehard Raider fans. But seriously, take a second. I think you would enjoy a lot of the content that we make here. Let's go to the final draft day trade. Let's say the Raiders want to trade up from the 2nd round and get back into round 1. Maybe there's a quarterback. Maybe there's a prospect on the board. Or maybe you want to jump your division rival. So the team that I think could end up actually trading back is the Philadelphia Eagles, because Philadelphia, yes, they made it to the Super Bowl, but they also have 2 first-round picks this year. So let's say they swap out one of their picks, which is what I have here. Raiders jump Kansas City. You go up to pick 30. Philadelphia Eagles get 38 and 100. I do think that the only way the Raiders do this is if there's a prospect that they are absolutely positively in love with. Like, let's say Kalijah Cansey starts falling down the board. He's there at 30. This is where I would try to pull the trigger on that. Also, on top of that, again, Philly, the 2 first-round picks, and they need to be able to retool their defense. They lost a lot of talent in free agency, and anytime you're able to potentially take a player away from your division rival, especially the defending Super Bowl champs, is always a good thing. So what we're going to do here now is this. I got 5 trade ideas, and if you could, go down in the comments section and tell me which trade is your favorite. If it's the first trade, I want you to type 1. If the second trade is your favorite, then I want you to type 2. If it's the third one, you catch my drift, give me a 3. 4th trade, 4. 5th trade, type 5. If you're trying to win right now, I think the trade that probably trying to win right now, I do think like the 2nd or 3rd trade probably makes the most sense. If I'm being 100% honest with y'all, it's the 4th trade. And the reason why I like the 4th trade the most is because, to me, you're still going to be able to get a Joey Porter Jr., a Devin Witherspoon, a top cornerback, and then you're going to position yourself very, very well to get one of those top quarterbacks in next year's class.